Welcome to the Bonnie Forward Show, and I am your host, Bonnie Forward, my post-Oscar show. So let's get right to it, shall we? All the winners and all the wonderful firsts that took place Sunday night, and oh, you didn't think I was going to skip the slap that was heard around the world, did you? Okay, let's get straight to it. Having done my due diligence since Sunday night on this topic, my issue with Will Smith is multi-layered. My main issue with him was that he was laughing at the joke that Chris Rock cracked until he looked over at his wife, who was clearly not happy, rolling her eyes, and then this all started to happen. Do I blame Jada? Yes, I do. There is something very strange in that dynamic, in that marriage, period. She has a show called Red Table Talk, where she has brought family members onto the show to discuss very personal subjects. Now, keep in mind, audience, these people have been in the public eye for 30 years. Okay? They're not newbies. So, when you drag your family into a public forum, such as a show where you talk about all things near and dear in your family, then I'm just saying. Anywho, she had Will on, and oh, I don't know if you all know this, but she slept with their son's friend, who was 22 at the time. So she brings Will onto the show to talk about what she called entanglement. And Will says to her on air, on the show, on camera, "Oh, is that what we're calling it these days?" Awkward. Anywho, she managed in that episode to reduce him to tears. So, come up with your own conclusions. But like I said, it's a very strange dynamic going on in that marriage. So, at first, I think all of us thought it was a joke, especially when he was about to win the Oscar for Best Actor. Violence is never an acceptable display of anger. Never, ever, ever. And there should be zero tolerance for somebody putting their hands on another person in anger. LAPD was there. And when everybody went backstage, Chris Rock was asked if he wanted to press charges, and he said no. So Los Angeles Police Department couldn't do anything about it because, obviously, if the victim of the assault doesn't want to press charges, then there's nothing that police can do. Moving on from that, what do we teach our children? We teach our children, use your words. Our children would be suspended from school in a heartbeat if they behaved in this manner. Anyway, I thought Will Smith acted in the typical manner of toxic masculinity. Now, that's a term that's bounced around a lot these days, but it's very true. It's when a man uses his masculinity in a toxic manner to represent himself as the macho guy, when in fact what he's doing is very toxic. I myself have been the recipient of toxic masculinity my entire life. And trust me, I can tell you firsthand, it's immature, it's childish, it's deliberate, and it's violent. And I, for one, was embarrassed for Will and horrified for Chris Rock. This is a night that Will Smith has waited for 30 years. And I'm not taking away from the fact that he well deserved this Oscar, playing the tennis superstars Venus and Serena Williams' father, Richard, in the film King Richard. It's brilliant. But I said that in a prior show. But he ruined it for himself. He not only ruined the entire evening for everybody, it threw a huge pallor on the whole show, which was going beautifully before that, but he ruined it for himself. If that's not embarrassing, I don't know what is. Anywho, once again, I've done copious research after what happened Sunday night. I confirmed Chris Rock was improvising in telling that joke. It was not scripted, and they don't vet the jokes before presenters get out there. It was just an off-the-cuff, albeit bonehead joke. But that happens to comedians. Sometimes you just kind of make a duty on stage. Chris Rock had to defend himself all by himself when he was up there after he was assaulted. And my hat's off to him. I mean, I thought that showed a tremendous amount of graciousness and dignity. And as far as I'm concerned, he was the adult in the room. And on top of that, he went on to present Questlove with his much-deserved Oscar for Best Documentary for Summer of Soul. For any of my viewers who've been watching the news about what happened, you know that during the commercial break, Tyler Perry and Denzel Washington went up to a crying Chris Rock and tried to find out if in fact he was having a meltdown, or if he was okay. But bottom line, are you having a mental breakdown in front of the entire world? Because this is broadcast. The Oscars are broadcast all over the world. So everybody saw this. And in most countries, besides the United States, it was not bleeped. Nothing of what was said was bleeped. Anyway, also, I don't believe that Chris Rock, according to all my sources, had any knowledge of Jada's battle with alopecia. Now, alopecia is another thing. It isn't just Black women that suffer from it. It's also a lot of white women and many other people of color. And it doesn't matter, especially if you work in this business, because when you are constantly, especially back in the old days, you are constantly having your hair bleached, you're constantly having your hair treated, you're constantly having your hair pulled out by wigs, your hair is traumatized as a woman in this industry. And alopecia is a side effect of all of that trauma. I'm not trying to make light of the condition at all. In fact, I completely relate to it. Anybody who's experienced hair loss knows exactly what I'm talking about. I further understand that moments after Will Smith won his Oscar and went backstage, he was told that the Academy planned to take action about the assault. Okay. So I think at that point, I would have wanted to keep my dignity and I would have left. But no, not Will Smith. Will Smith went on to party the night away and go to the Vanity Fair party, getting jiggy with it for all of us to see. And, yay me, with that Oscar in his hand. Yay me. And that would have been all fine and good if he hadn't done what he did. This is what is going to be remembered from these Oscars, and that's what makes me so sad. There have been many situations in the Oscars. I particularly remember when the streaker came across while presentations were being done. And for those of you who don't know what a streaker is somebody who runs naked across the stage in this case, while David Niven was trying to present an Oscar. It was actually quite hilarious. That's certainly a very different take from getting violent and slapping someone in the face. Anywho, in November of 2021, Will Smith addressed his trauma as a child to Hoda Kotb in an interview. And he talked about how when he was a very young child, he watched his mother brutally hit by his father to the point where there was blood. He was about, I don't know, he said around 9 years old, I think he said. And he felt very helpless and frightened because he was unable to protect her. That is core trauma from which this type of behavior stems, and it's all too prevalent. It is in no way, shape, or form chivalrous to put your hands on another person in defense of your spouse. Ever. Those are the actions of a traumatized bully who's been triggered. Many have asked why he wasn't removed from the Oscars immediately, because nobody could figure out what to do. They didn't know how to make a decision as to what to do because this had never happened before. It was well, ask Bob, we'll ask Tom, we'll ask Dennis, we'll ask Joe, we'll ask Bill situation. So Will Packer, the first Black man to ever produce the Oscars, another first producer of this year's Oscars, had to make a split decision as to what to do with Will Smith, especially since Chris Rock had already said he didn't want to press charges. So the decision was made that he would go back to his seat because of the process of a sudden removal and all that would have entitled production-wise, it was simply not possible. Even Will's mother made a statement on ABC Philadelphia television. That was the first time I have ever seen him go off, her words, not mine, like that in his lifetime. That's a direct quote. When you talk to people like, well, Jim Carrey, for example, made a statement when he was on CBS this morning with Gayle King. And he said, quote, I was sickened. I was sickened by the standing ovation. I felt like Hollywood is just spineless en masse. It really felt like this is a clear indication that we're not in the cool club anymore. When King added that there was a debate over whether or not Smith should have been arrested, Carrey said he should have been. Though Chris Rock declined to press charges against Smith, as I already said, Carrey says he would have. He says, Chris doesn't want the hassle. I'd have announced the following morning that I was suing Will Smith for $200 million. Because the video is going to be out there forever. Forever. It's going to be ubiquitous. That insult's going to last a very long time. And if you want to yell from the audience or disapprove or say something on Twitter or whatever, you do not have the right to walk up on stage and smack somebody because they said words. King followed up by saying, I just thought, Jim, that it escalated to the level, and Carrey cut her off and said, it didn't escalate. It came out of nowhere because Will's got something going on inside of him that's frustrating. I wish him the best. I really do. I don't have anything against Will Smith. He's done great things, but that was not a good moment. It was just a selfish moment that cast a pall over the whole thing. That's from Jim Carrey. Now I'm going to move on to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, one of my fellow Bruins who graduated from UCLA in 1969, way ahead of me. He said, when Will Smith stormed onto the Oscar stage to strike Chris Rock for making a joke about his wife's short hair, he did a lot more damage than just to Rock's face. With a single petulant blow, he advocated violence, he diminished women, he insulted the entertainment industry, and perpetuated stereotypes about the Black community. That's a lot to unpack. Let's start with the facts. Rock made a reference to Smith's wife, Jada Pinkett Smith, as looking like Demi Moore in G.I. Jane. which was a movie in which Moore shaved her head. Jada Pinkett Smith suffers from alopecia, which causes hair loss. Okay, I can see where the Smiths might not have found that joke funny. But Hollywood awards shows are traditionally a venue where much worse things have been said. Okay? But, it's part of the. Anyway, let me keep quoting what Kareem has to say. But Hollywood award shows are traditionally a venue where much worse things have been said about celebrities as a means of downplaying the fact that it's basically a gathering of multimillionaires giving each other awards to boost business so they can make more money. The Smiths could have reacted by politely laughing along with the joke or by glowering angrily at Rock. Instead, Smith felt the need to get up in front of his industry peers and millions of people around the world, hit another man, and then return to his seat to bellow, "Keep my wife's name out of your fucking mouth," twice. Some have romanticized Smith's actions as that of being a loving husband defending his wife. Again, I'm quoting Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the great basketball player. Comedian Tiffany Haddish, who starred in the movie Girls Trip with Pinkett Smith, praised Smith's actions. "For me, it was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen because it made me believe there are still men out there who love and care about their women, their wives." Actually, it was the opposite. Smith's slap was also a slap to women. If Rock had physically attacked Pinkett Smith, then that would have been another story. That kind of intervention would have been welcome. Or if he'd remained in his seat and yelled a post-slap threat, that would have been unnecessary, but understandable. But by hitting Rock, he announced that his wife was incapable of defending herself against words. That comes up again. From everything I've seen of Jada Pinkett Smith over the years, she's very capable, she's tough, and she's a smart woman who can single-handedly take on a lame joke at the Academy Awards show. This patronizing, paternal attitude infantilizes women and reduces them to hopeless, helpless damsels needing a big, strong man to defend their honor lest they swoon from the vapors. If he was really doing it for his wife and not his own need to prove himself, he might have thought about the negative attention that this brought on them. Much harsher than the joke, which was very benign. That would have been truly defending and respecting her. This "women need men to defend them" is the same justification currently being proclaimed by conservatives passing laws to restrict abortion and the LGBTQ plus community. Worse than the slap was Smith's tearful, self-serving acceptance speech, in which he rambled on about all the women in the movie King Richard that he's protected. Those who protect don't brag about it in front of 15 million plus people around the world. They just do it and shut up. Those who protect don't brag about it. They just don't. You don't do it as a movie promotion claiming how you like the character you portrayed that you just won an Oscar for. That you're just like that person, Wacky Richard. But of course, the speech was about justifying his violence. Apparently, so many people need Smith's protection that occasionally it just gets too much and someone needs to be smacked. What is this, Cobra Kai? The teachings of might makes right and talk is for losers? Let's not forget that this macho John Wayne philosophy was expressed in 2 movies in which Wayne spanked grown women to teach them a lesson. Young boys, especially black boys, watching their movie idol not only just hit another man over a joke, but then to justify it as him being some superhero-like protector, are now much more prone to follow in his childish footsteps. Perhaps the saddest confirmation of this is the tweet from Smith's child, Jaden. Quote, "And that's how we do it," unquote. The black community also takes a direct hit from Smith. One of the main talking points from those supporting the systemic racism in America is character characterizing blacks as more prone to violence and less able to control their emotions. Smith just gave a comfort to the enemy by providing them with the perfect optics they were dreaming of. Many will be reinvigorated to continue their campaign to marginalize African Americans and others through voter suppression campaign. As for the damage to show business, Smith's violence is an implied threat to all comedians who now have to worry that an edgy, or insulting joke might be met with violence. Good thing Don Rickles, Bill Burr, or Ricky Gervais weren't there. As comedian Kathy Griffin tweeted, now we all have to worry about who wants to be the next Will Smith in comedy clubs and theaters. The one bright note is that Chris Rock, clearly stunned, managed to handle himself with grace and maturity. If only Smith's acceptance speech had shown similar grace and maturity and included, instead of self-aggrandizing excuses, a heartfelt apology to Rock. End of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's statement. I agree. It tainted the entire rest of the night, as I said before. Smith's apology on Instagram, also if you've read it, appeared well crafted by an attorney. It was full of legalese. I think a video apology would have been much more effective, because then we could have seen him making an apology. I liked what Wanda Sykes had to say when she was on the Ellen DeGeneres show a few days later. She said she thought that Will Smith should have been escorted from the building, and then later she could have stepped up when the Best Actor winner was announced to say, unfortunately, Will Smith couldn't be with us. I thought that was hilarious. And actually would have been perfect, because it would have shown that the Academy doesn't tolerate this kind of violence. They did, in fact, ask him to leave after the incident, and he refused. I've also verified that. That is not in dispute. Whoopi Goldberg is on the board of the Academy, and she confirms that the Academy did, in fact, ask Will Smith to leave, and he did, in fact, refuse. Speaking of the Academy, they are taking their time to review absolutely everything that happened Sunday night, because they need to know in order to meet and decide what sanctions they're going to impose against Will Smith. They will convene on April 18th, and they will make that decision. Will Packer yesterday said that Chris Rock was asked if he wanted to press charges. And again, he said no. So Will Smith was merely asked to leave, but not told to leave. So that speaks volumes for Chris Rock. He was definitely, like I said before, the adult in the room. Anywho, it took much deserved attention away from so many firsts. Oh my goodness. Let's move on to them. Historic wins. My favorite, Coda for Best Picture. I was so happy. If you haven't seen it again, it's streaming on Apple TV Plus, and it is brilliant. As soon as it goes to print, go out and buy it if you haven't seen it, or just buy it anyway to have it in your video library, because it is brilliant. I mean, it is brilliant. It was the first film to win an Oscar from a streaming service, which is an amazing feat in and of itself. And of course, it was history making for the first win for a primarily deaf cast. Not bad, Cara. Questlove, he won for Summer of Soul, which Chris Rock presented him with at Oscar. Such a special moment. He won the BAFTA, so I kind of thought that he might win this. And he did, so I was thrilled. Again, if you haven't seen Summer of Soul, it's about, well, they call it the Black Woodstock. It takes place over 6 episodes that were spliced together into this documentary, brilliantly, I might say, of the Summer of Soul. There were 6 concerts done in Harlem, outside concerts done in Harlem in the summer of '69 from June to August. And this is what that's all about. The interesting thing, the most fascinating thing I found out about this film before I saw it, it's streaming on Hulu, and I think it's also on Netflix. It certainly is in countries outside of the United States. The thing that I found fascinating was that these concerts sat in storage for 50 years before Questlove got his hands on it a couple years ago. And I just think it's amazing that nobody had discovered this footage before now. I mean, that's extraordinary. But I'm so blessed and grateful that we have this documentary, once again, so brilliantly put together by Questlove. And we get to see people like Nina Simone and Sly and the Family Stone, and I could go on and on and on. I mean, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. See it. I mean, I was thrilled for him. Absolutely thrilled. Okay, another first was Ariana DeBose winning for Best Supporting Actress. Was also history making. Only 2 Latinas have ever won Oscars in that category, and that was Rita Moreno and now Ariana DeBose, 60 years apart, and for the exact same role. How wonderful is that? Troy Kotsur, the first deaf actor to ever win an Oscar. Marlee Matlin, of course, having won the Best Actress Oscar in 1987 for her role as Sarah in the movie Children of a Lesser God. Another one you should see if you haven't seen it. Kenneth Branagh winning his first Oscar ever. So very well deserved for Belfast. I absolutely adored that film. It was so much about love and family, and it was based on his own life in 1969, August of 1969, another August of 1969, growing up in Belfast as a young child. Jude Hill was incredible portraying the very young Branagh. That kid has got a future ahead of him, let me tell you. In memoriam. Thoughts? Okay, since you asked, I thought it was so distracting to have so many singers and dancers on stage. Did it take away or add to? My answer's simple. It took away by adding to. I wasn't even aware it was an in memoriam until I saw the faces. I mean, the way the Academy chose to do it, oy, oy, oy. An in memoriam sequence is not a showcase for a song and dance number. I know, it was meant to show it as a celebration of life, if you will, but really? And they left out Ed Asner, the president of the Screen Actors Guild, and Bob Saget. Okay. The Godfather 50th anniversary. Okay, they brought out Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, and of course, Francis Ford Coppola, who made the film when they were in their late 20s, early 30s. In 1973, that film came out, I believe it was. No, it was earlier than that. Anyway, I thought that Robert De Niro and Al Pacino should have been allowed to speak because the only one that spoke was Francis Ford Coppola. And I thought that was just it just was awkward because the guys were just standing there next to him. Huh. Whatever. Then there was a Pulp Fiction reunion, which I thought was hilarious. They did a great job with Samuel L. Jackson and Uma Thurman and John Travolta. It was really cute. It was very well done, the way that Uma and John started to dance with each other, doing the whole thing and all that stuff. It was great. And then they did a White Men Can't Jump reunion, which was pretty funny. And then they did a Juno reunion 15 years later. So that was it was cool. It was cool to have those as a distraction from what we'd seen. Best song was No Time to Die by Billie Eilish. And I loved her and her performance her performance with Phineas was extraordinary. I'm a big Billie Eilish fan, so I love that. And the Williams sisters, they worked so hard for so many years to get this film made about their father, Richard Williams. I'll leave it at that. The three hostesses were marvelous. And with what they had to deal with, they were champs. On that note, I'm going to end the show by saying I thought Amy Schumer did a great job in coming back when she said, I was having struggles getting out of my Spider-Man costume, and did I miss something? Because it's awfully quiet in here and it seems like the vibe has changed. I thought that was a wonderful way to break all of that tension. She did a brilliant job. Good on you, Amy. So, on that note, I'm going, as I said before, I think the exact right thing was done by Wanda Sykes when she said, and she thought, I got to reiterate this, that she thought Will Smith should have been removed, and then she could have said when he won his Oscar, unfortunately, Will Smith could not be with us tonight. Remember, love and light, stay in your power, and peace out.